Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for our next Learn Live session, Manage Compliance with Microsoft Purview with Microsoft 365 Copilot. My name is Anna. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thanks so much for joining.
Hi, thanks, Anna, and hello, everyone. And hey, Max, how are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. It's nice to have us again this week for session 2.
Yes, so this is week 2, or the second session of our 3-week series. And this week, it's something actually really dear to my heart, which is managing compliance with Microsoft Purview for Microsoft 365 Copilot. So for those that don't know me, my name is Sofika, and I am a senior product manager with Purview to secure and govern AI. And Max, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Max Bombardier, calling in from Montreal, and I'm also a product manager as part of Purview. I focus a lot on data security, but also helping you across Purview, just making it the best of the platform for you.
Perfect. Well, we have a really exciting session for you today. We're going to talk all about the compliance capabilities to govern Microsoft 365 Copilot. So we'll cover audit, e-discovery, data lifecycle management, and communication compliance. To start, Max, do you want to give us a recap and an overview of our products in Purview?
I do, thank you. And so as we covered very briefly last week, Microsoft Purview is a comprehensive suite of solutions. We've spent a lot of time last week on security and data security, just understanding the risks that you have, not only for M365 Copilot, but also other AIs as well, and the capabilities that are available to you to help secure your estate, control how users are able to interact or blocked based on the use of AI. And Purview is, as a comprehensive suite, is not only for data security, but also data governance for all the other types of content, all the structured data, as well as what's going to be on the focus today for risks and compliance, whether that's all about understanding the use of AI, or whether it's going to be about making sure that it follows the same regulations. You have the policies in place, follow the same regulations. So when I think of keeping content, so Sophie's going to bring us some great demos showing what we can do as this expansion of data with AI has grown considerably, where prompts are basically now a new type of data, the same way that we had IAMs many years ago to be counted into the platform. So again, Purview comprehensive suite, one-stop shop to help you configure and manage across the entirety of the estate.
I love that. So a little bit of a recap from last week as well. So last week we focused on the data security features, right? Your MIP, so Microsoft Purview Information Protection, Data Loss Prevention DLP, and Insider Risk Management IRM to protect Microsoft 365 Copilot's interactions as well as other AI. So this is a great view to see where Purview can help to secure and protect. So not just Microsoft 365 Copilot, but also enterprise AI and other AI as well. So for today, we're going to focus in that middle lane. So we're going to focus on Purview data compliance solutions to help govern Microsoft 365 Copilot. So speaking of Microsoft 365 Copilot, I know last week we talked about it's so much like a huge part of our lives now, right? And using that every day, using that every hour, I can't imagine life without it. So we're talking about how to govern the prompts and responses of Microsoft 365 Copilot today. And as you mentioned, Max, we as Purview as part of that data pillar, right, we help to secure and govern data. And now this is expanding a new location or new type of data, which is the prompts and responses that the users interact with
That's
Microsoft
right.
Copilot.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it does intersect too. What's interesting here in this space is as it was separate between security and compliance, and the reason why we see the value of us having a single platform like Purview to do this is, well, what if users are trying to leverage prompts for jailbreaking and you want to know what type of users are doing? And yes, we have security controls to help you, but also there's a need to make sure you retain the right the prompts, the attempts to prompts, being able to audit this, maybe even delete some of that as well, information based on regulatory requirements. So I think getting that into the same approach that we've had across Purview helps you not only see end to end on the security, but also on the compliance.
Absolutely. And one of the main concerns, top concerns actually, our customers have raised is being able to adhere to regulations, policies. So that is right in, data compliance, risk and compliance. So let's dive right in. All right. So the first thing we're going to cover is how can you audit the interaction of Microsoft 365 Copilot, and that is through our Purview audit logs. So you can access all the interactions, but I do want to call out here when we talk about interactions here, we're actually not talking about the actual prompts and responses, which we will cover later on using e-discovery and communication compliance. This is, I guess, Max, we call it's the interactions audit log, right? So knowing that an interaction happened. So you can search the Purview audit log for specific Copilot or AI applications and filter it using specific operations like the activity types, the record type, and workload, which we'll go into in detail in just a moment, to find specific interactions with specific types of AI, and obviously for Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Yeah, that's right. And what's good here is if you have any automations leveraging, these audits today, and you have some workbooks, playbooks on top of it, this is just an addition to the existing platform. So it's not a net new, as we'll see in a minute. As we look at the interface, it helps you to understand just, hey, this is a part, just a data set that's being added. No need to rework or rethink, have access to a different portal. This is all built in today's tools.
Yeah, so let's take a look. All right, so I am now in Microsoft Purview and I've selected the audit solution. So this is the landing page that you will be on to be able to search really any interactions, right? So this, as you can see, what I have done is I have selected the filter for activities, friendly names, and I've searched for and found the one where we're interested in today, which is the user interacted with Copilot. So this is what you want to filter and search for to get interactions as a result of your search and audit for interactions with Copilot. And this is just an example, but you can actually search and find specific types of interactions if you're interested in. So if you just want to see interactions of users with Microsoft Copilot through the BizChat client, there is actually specific app identity, right? Copilot.Microsoft, Copilot.BizChat, or using the app host as a filter to find those as well. So lots of customization there. And as I mentioned, this is just on the interaction, but not on the actual prompt and response, like the content of the prompt and response level. But this is an example of what we see as a result of searching through the audit log. So some very interesting things that you may want to look at is, number one, I've highlighted in bold here. I know there's a lot happening here, but really it's what the first one I would look at, number one, is for example, user ID. So who is the user interacting with us? So you can filter on that if you export this. You can also see what the workload is and the app host. I would say the workload and app host is where you can figure out, okay, this is with Copilot, M365 Copilot in Word as an example here. And one other thing that's quite interesting is, and a lot of people don't realize, is that we actually have not only the message ID, which is the ID on the message itself, the interaction itself, but also thread ID. And thread ID is something that you can essentially thread the conversation together, right? So if you do an export of your Purview in audit interactions with Microsoft 365 Copilot, you can actually then essentially in Excel do your magic and group all the conversations that are tied to one thread ID to see that conversation from end to end.
And for those of you leveraging audit today, this is a very common response type or message that you would use today. Many customers are leveraging this and creating some, as you said, either in Excel or some other methods to just filter back. And sometimes it's about reporting trends and just looking at how overall it's being used across not only in this context Copilot, but any of the audits that we have throughout the system. So very commonly used. Also being used in investigative purposes as well. So just looking for specific data that you're looking for an event that happened and you're looking back into a specific user at a time and what they've attempted to do. So great quick use directly from the platform.
Absolutely. And here is a very quick view. Again, this is all in our Learn Doc documentation on audit for Copilot. And we do have all of these attributes for you to filter, to sort, and gather. And obviously, thread ID is what I mentioned there. And other ones that I find customers use a lot is obviously app host. So the type of Copilot that's used during the interaction so that you can very clearly see, as Max mentioned, where your end users are using Copilot. Are they using it mostly through, Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc.? Yeah. Awesome. So that is Microsoft Purview Audit for Microsoft 365. So we talked about how audit is on the interaction level. So now we're actually talking about investigating and potentially needing to delete these interactions, right? So we talked, and I think you mentioned that at the beginning too, right? So now there's a new type of data, which is the actual interactions with Copilot, and the volume of that, depending obviously on the size of your organization, can be humongous. And so that is extra data, again, that you need to manage or adhere to regulations and policies. Right. So one way to investigate and delete that content is through eDiscovery Premium. So let's take a look here.
That'll give us a bit of a more complete experience on what you're searching for, rather than sort of the backbone, which is audit. So everything is built on top of that. As we think, get more interactive sessions to find back what you need.
For sure. And so with eDiscovery Premium, and we'll talk a little bit about Microsoft Graph Explorer, so the combination of the two, you're able to search and delete actual user prompts and Microsoft for Microsoft 365 Copilot and Microsoft 365 Copilot chat responses. So let's take a look at this. So there's a few caveats. I know this is a bit wordy, but it is, before we begin on this journey, there's a few caveats that we need to mention. So you do need some roles because you are using the eDiscovery solution. So you must be assigned eDiscovery permissions. So it's either the data investigator or organization management role. And also, just as a FYI, there is a maximum of 100 items per mailbox can be removed at one time because of this capability. So I will do a plug. We're going to talk about data lifecycle management in just a moment to automatically delete prompts and responses. But if you need to do investigations, through eDiscovery and see the prompts and responses and then delete them, you can also do it this way. So multiple ways to achieve that result.
Yeah, and it's very similar to what I mentioned for audit. I mean, the advantage here is it's a known quantity. You've leveraged advanced eDiscovery Premium today. You are familiar with the tool. Think of this as just additional data that's being leveraged and available to you to surface back via eDiscovery. But it's not, you don't have to learn another platform just to do this.
Absolutely. And And there's one more caveat, and lots of caveats today, but there's one more caveat. So we talk about, you can use eDiscovery to collect and export all of these prompts and responses, maybe as an investigation or internal investigation. However, on the deleting side, we will, there is that caveat, which is if you have already a hold or a retention policy on the prompts and responses through Purview Data Lifecycle Management or eDiscovery hold, know that you cannot actually delete it through the Graph Explorer. So to start, obviously we want to go to eDiscovery. So this is where we're seeing eDiscovery in the new Purview portal. And we go to the case area to create a new case. This case and the search that we're going to create inside this case will be the basis and the IDs that we're going to take to delete the prompts and responses associated with the case and the search. So I've named my new case Copilot Data Search. And then once you're in the actual case, you can then go ahead and create a new search. And this, again, this is the search. Depending on the criteria that you're using, will find the Copilot interactions. We just talked about in audit, whether it's specific app host or specific thread ID, or for specific types of AI, you can now go ahead and search for those interactions that you would like to find and delete. So this is where we've created a new search, and we can use either the content builder, or actually what we're seeing here is Security Copilot Max, right? So we can also use Security Copilot to create a query.
Yep, to help you build it up together.
Exactly. We're going to go ahead and select our sources. So as you know, it's the users interacting with Copilot. So you can either choose all users in your tenant, so all sources, or if you are doing an investigation, again, for specific people, you can select those users directly here. All right. So I've selected a specific user here, which I want to find the interactions for. And now with the content builder, I can say the type of content that I'm looking for contains any of, for example, in this case, I'm looking for any Copilot activity that this user has had. And here's, again, a quick reference. This is a screenshot from our Learn Doc, so you are welcome to, I will share all the resources at the end of this session, but we do call out if you're looking for very specific types of Copilot data, you can, again, search these specific item classes for that.
That's a good call out. It really depends on the investigation purposes that you had. What was the trigger that led you to create that investigation, whether that's from specific workloads that you want to hit, or some keywords, or if it is about like something specific, some people are trying to use, or again, the jailbreak example to an extent, but trying to find information about something, an event that's coming in. It could be a merger, it could be something very sensitive that you're trying to see how people are leveraging the system for it.
Absolutely. The content builder is very flexible in that sense, and it's a keyword query language, a builder, and you can customize that. So we're keeping it simple today. We're just looking for any Copilot interactions that this specific user has had with Microsoft 365 Copilot, and I'm going to go ahead and run that query. I know I did the little bit of a caveat before, but again, you want to make sure if you're looking to actually delete those Copilot data from mailboxes, you have to remove any hold or retention policy that is assigned for that. Otherwise,
this is really, oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
It's really about design in context of, the same holds true for files today or emails. So same holds true as if you have a hold in place. It is meant to be for regulatory purposes. So in context here, you can remove the hold and then do the deletion.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you don't skip this step, or else your content that you're trying to delete is still retained for compliance purposes. All right. So now we have created the case, we've created the search, and we're ready to delete the Copilot data with all the holds removed. So you're going to need the ID of the eDiscovery case that you've created. You need to get the search ID, and then you are able to delete the Copilot data. this is something that you may know or you don't know, but if you actually look at the URL, and if you have worked in SharePoint in the past, we get a lot of GUIDs that way as well. So if you look at the URL for your case and then in your search, you will actually find the eDiscovery case ID and eDiscovery search ID directly in there. So this is a little bit of a shortcut to get that, but you can always obviously query against the case and the search ID in Graph Explorer to get the GUID returned back as well. All right.
And again, I think, something fairly familiar for those of you already leveraging eDiscovery. I think in the case of the scenario and why we're putting the emphasis on the deletion, and then if you have retention, why it doesn't work, even though that's by design, I think that there's still regulations being updated today on, or now, about what should we keep or not keep about these prompts. So now, as we see it as the same as data, that's why we have the same tools. But regulations are shifting towards, okay, well, is this more personal or is this more business in the terms of use? And hence the extra explanation that we have for how to delete prompts.
Exactly. Yeah, we have a lot of check and balances in place.
Definitely.
All right. So if you're going the Graph Explorer route versus the PowerShell route, you can go to the Graph Explorer, run the following post request, and delete the items return in the search you created. So it looks something like this, right? So you're in the Graph Explorer, you want to choose post, you're going to type in that command, and obviously you're going to replace the eDiscovery case ID and the eDiscovery search ID here with your actual GUID. And you can go ahead and run that query, and once it finishes and you have all the right permissions, it will be able to delete all of the prompts and responses in that search. All right. Another option, I don't have a screenshot for this, but if you are familiar with PowerShell, you can also connect to PowerShell for Graph and do this through PowerShell. So we do have more information for you in our Learn Doc if you want to follow this method.
Clearly, we were comprehensive in methods to delete Copilot data across all methods for you.
Yeah. And again, if you did remove those holds and retention policies to user mailboxes in the interim to delete, obviously we asked that you probably would want to reapply those holds and retention policies again. Yeah.
That's good.
Yes. All right. So that was eDiscovery Premium to search for and then delete using Graph Explorer or PowerShell, those prompts and responses. And then obviously we talked about the caveats. You have to remove holds or retention policies that's on the prompts and responses themselves. So let's now dive directly into Purview Data Lifecycle Management and see how we can manage the retention and deletion of these prompts and responses through Purview DLM. All right, so we obviously have to talk first what is actually included for retention and deletion with Purview DLM. So right now, you will see at the bottom of the screen here, we have retention and deletion for Teams, chat, and Copilot interactions together. And it's automatically covering both Microsoft Teams chats and Copilot interactions. So when you go ahead and go into Purview DLM, and we'll demo that in just a moment, to create a retention policy, and you select this Teams chat and Copilot interaction as on, then the settings that you set for retention and or deletion will apply to both Teams chat and Copilot interactions. And that includes both the user prompts and the responses coming back from Copilot.
Yeah, that's right. From that perspective, I mean, it's thought in it's the same kind of data as IMs or regular messages that we have. So it really is just an extension of that. The data store is the same model behind. So helping you decide how long you need to keep things or when you need to automatically delete it.
For sure. And I will just say that we heard a lot from our customers and partners that they would like to see a separate retention policy being able created for just Copilot interactions versus Teams chat, because there might be different retention or deletion policies or regulations to both. So I just want to say we hear you. we're working on that. All right, so let's take a look at Purview Data Lifecycle Management. So again, I'm in the Purview combined portal and I've navigated to the Data Lifecycle Management solution. So I will call out here because we have two solutions to manage the lifecycle of content. There's Data Lifecycle Management and Records Management. So if you're looking to create retention policies to retain or delete Microsoft 365 Copilot interactions, be sure to go to Data Lifecycle Management where retention policy resides.
It's the newer siblings.
Yes. And so in Data Lifecycle Management, if you click the policies, tab in the left, you will see retention policy there. And this is where we can click that plus new retention policy button and create a net new retention policy. All right, so we definitely want to name our retention policy. And again, I will put a plug here. Unfortunately, right now, maybe this will change in the future, Max, but the name you give the retention policy cannot be edited after you create it. So make sure the name you give your retention policy is, concise, but also descriptive. So what I've put in here is this is the Microsoft 365 Copilot interaction retention policy. You can set admin units to manage who can manage this specific policy. I'm going to skip that for this. And you can also choose who to apply this retention policy to. I'm going to click static and I'm going to select all. But again, if you have adaptive scopes, you can choose that here to scope this specific retention policy to regions or business units. And like I mentioned, you're going to scroll all the way down when you're selecting that static scope and find Teams chats and Copilot interactions. And that will, again, include messages from individual chats, group chats, meeting chats, bot chats, and Microsoft 365 Copilot interactions. Wow, that's a mouthful.
There's a lot of options there too.
Yes. And even though you've selected static static scope, you can still select specific users in this case, right? So on the right here, you can see I've selected all users, but again, you can manually choose which users you want to apply this retention policy to. All right, so this is really the critical piece, right? How long do you want to retain? Do you want to retain it forever? Do you only want to delete, or do you want to retain and then delete? So I know it's sometimes a little bit confusing, so I'll just quickly walk through the details here. So the first option, retain items for a specific period and then delete automatically, means that the Copilot interactions, the prompts and responses will not be able to be deleted during that period of time. And then it will be deleted automatically. Retain items forever, that means all Copilot interactions will be retained forever and ever.
Yeah.
And that's essentially permanent retention if you're in the records management world. And then the last option here, only delete when they reach a certain age. Essentially, it means that you can use, for example, eDiscovery and Graph Explorer to delete it during that time before it reaches a certain age, and then it will be automatically deleted. Did that make sense, Max?
I commonly refer to these as I want to keep it for at least as long of that time, and then I want to keep it forever, and then I don't want to keep it for longer than. And then sort of the three options you got right there.
Awesome. Love it. And yes, you can then choose obviously the specific period of time that you want to retain and then delete. So you can choose, 3 months, 1 month, 30 days. We just ask that you put a minimum of 30 days in there. All right. And then you review and finish, and then you click that submit button, and your policy will be created to retain and or delete Microsoft 365 Copilot prompts and responses. Easy peasy, right, Max?
Easy done. It's going quick. But yes, it is that easy to implement. Again, I mean, it is the same answer as before, but it's all looped into what exists today. So easy way for you to add capabilities to just restrict how long do you want to keep that information, and or at the minimum amount of time you want to keep just for investigative purposes. Very easy to set up. and then it's going to take it into effect very quickly.
Exactly. All right. So we talked about e-discovery along with Graph Explorer to search for and delete Microsoft 365 Copilot prompts and responses. And then we talked about Purview DLM to delete or retain or delete those prompts and responses. So now, last but not least, we also want to analyze potentially or detect Microsoft 365 Copilot interactions with Purview communication compliance. And I think you mentioned a good scenario on jailbreak, which we will cover here, right, with Microsoft communication compliance. Do you want to talk a little bit about, what it is and why it's important? Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to also position like the other two are sort of generic to general investigation purposes, right? So you have something in mind, you're looking into something specific. So depending on the perspective you have, whether you need to dig into the audit data to just look at all the data, usually use across more than just Copilot, but then we also surface Copilot interaction. And same thing with e-discovery. When you think of that, it's also, well, I want to look for something specific. This is more of the flip side of it. Well, what should I look at? What are the trends? Are the people using it? And what are the scenarios? Like sometimes I get comments from colleagues using Copilot, like, oh yeah, I could have asked it this way. Like not everybody thinks the same way. Communication compliance gives you a good window into how the tool is being used so that you can then identify what investigation you might want to double click into. So communication compliance in context of this is really that double click or specialized interface to help you set some policies in place, but also just reviewing back and analyzing the use of M365 Copilot.
Yeah. So I think, I love how you put it, right? So e-discovery, you're investigating, right? The prompts and responses has happened. You're investigating that. And then again, you can choose to delete that afterwards or not, or start an internal investigation on something that may have happened. I think one thing that is interesting to call out is that we're going to talk about communication compliance. And then at the end of a communication compliance policy, when you analyze the result, you can also export that result to e-discovery for further investigation. Yeah.
It all comes back to the purpose. This CC or communication compliance it's purpose driven to analyze the types of interaction, whereas the other two that we discussed so far, skipping DLM or data lifecycle management, because that's for a particular need. But if I think about it in e-discovery, the purpose is more holistic. I am looking into an event and then I'm looking for everything, and now it happens to include interactions now. So that new data set, if I could put it this way, whereas communication compliance really is that focus honed in. Here's the scenarios that I should investigate and identify to dig deeper in.
Yeah.
Let's look into it.
Yeah. So one example you gave was detecting jailbreak with Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? So that is something that we want to essentially continuously detect. And that's something we can do with Purview communication compliance.
That's right. And we'll keep adding scenarios as we see trends and the use overall. We'll keep iterating there.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's take a look at, again, we're back in the Microsoft Purview Combined portal, and we're in communication compliance. So I'm going to navigate to the policies tab, and this is where you can see all the policies that have already existed, that already was created in your tenant, and you can go ahead and use that plus, create policy to create a net new policy. And I will pause on this screen and just talk a little bit here. So these are all So they're a custom policy, what you see at the bottom, which means you can customize this. And then there's some templates, right? Built-in templates for our communication compliance policy to detect specific types of, I will call them inappropriate, right? Activities that's happening with your messaging. So at the very top is that detect Microsoft Copilot interactions.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that, what comes to mind as well is when we think about this, the proactive versus reactive nature as well is a good way to look at this, where now we're heading into more of the proactive capabilities to to understand what's going on with the system rather than the reactive piece that we're audit and e-discovery.
Exactly. So with communication compliance policy, and I just want to I guess differentiate. So the first one that says detect Microsoft Copilot interactions. When you create that policy, you are essentially detecting all Microsoft Copilot interactions. So you're not just detecting, inappropriate messaging. You're using CC to help you detect and visualize all of the Microsoft Copilot interactions that is happening in your tenant. Obviously, you can scope that to specific users. You can scope that right, so to see. And I think what I really see customers using that instead of, I guess, e-discovery, and you might argue they can do both the same things, which is showing you the prompts and responses, is that I would say perhaps for specific, many organizations, there are specific roles who can actually access e-discovery versus someone who can access communication compliance.
Yeah, in fact, Colette, I forgot to mention earlier, when I think both audit and e-discovery, there are back, role-based permission you can apply for the tool, right? And it is, and when you think of the purpose of them, it's to look about all interaction. If I want to go back with, sorry, word interaction is overused now. But if I think of e-discovery, every interaction on the system, whether it's documents and emails and Copilot interactions, but it's about looking back. When I think about this one, it's, again, the active and proactive component of it, but also who can apply. You're right. So if you need a team that is purpose-driven on Copilot interaction, communication compliance gives you the best for that.
Yeah. And then, so that's the top one, which is detect Microsoft Copilot interactions. And then down below, we have all of the built-in, essentially they're classifiers, right? So we're able to detect inappropriate content, inappropriate texts, right? And financial regulatory compliance, etc. So you can either choose the top one, which is detect all Microsoft Copilot interactions, or you can set up policy to say, I just want to detect, for example, inappropriate content and inappropriate text in a Microsoft 365 Copilot interaction. So both are available to you through a custom policy that you can customize. So
it's good to know that communication compliance has been there for a while as well. So it is yet another extension of Purview into this space, but it put it back at the forefront of interactions, because now these Copilot interactions are all about essentially prompts and chats, and in a way it's a chat. So whereas before you might not have looked in communication compliance just for reviewing how employees are they sending sensitive content to other employees, this is really just an extension, but a great use of it. So I love how we've been able to put communication compliance at the forefront with this. It's great.
So the first one, right, that top one, detect Microsoft Copilot interactions. So this is a quick policy creation there. You can then again choose whether you want to apply it to all users or specific users in your tenant, and then you can choose to detect specific, essentially they're called trainable classifiers, right? So in this case, we're detecting prompt shield, which is looking at jailbreak and looking at if protected materials have been referenced in Copilot interactions. So you can, so this is a brand new template that we have in communication compliance to detect that.
And for those of you less familiar with communication compliance, you'll notice, if you're familiar with more data security, you'll see that reviewers is available to you. So if you, again, on our back, when I think of the roles, we can have people that can just review this policy alerts that will be raising data with it. So very good way to segment who can investigate back on that data.
Yeah. All right. So really the key here when you create a CC, and CC is short for communication compliance policy, is that location. And this is the newly added location in CC that you're looking at interactions with Microsoft 365 Copilot. So if you choose that, then your policy will cover the interactions within Microsoft 365 Copilot. Oh, this looks a little small, and hopefully you can people can still read this. But what this one is showing is an unethical behavior policy in CC, and that was actually created directly from our data security posture management for AI. And what you're seeing here is that what my condition is that the content contains any of these classifier, and I'm looking at those unethical behaviors within my AI application. So I know, our session today, Max, is focused on governing Microsoft 365 Copilot, but I do want to call out with communication compliance, you are also able to extend that to the other AI that we spoke about, in our last session.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to show as well to tie it back into when we talked about the SPM for ad last week and we had that focus session. It really is, all encompassing across Purview platforms. In this context, it's surfacing back what you're creating in communication compliance, and the SPM for AI is able to leverage it.
Yeah, and this is a result. So I'm looking into that CC policy. So if you are a reviewer or you are an admin for communication compliance, you can then review the results of the policy that you've created. So I'm looking for unethical behavior in AI apps, and it has detected that this specific interaction with Microsoft 365 Copilot referenced, obviously, our sample message for detecting inappropriate text. So if you have, obviously, if you hopefully you don't, but with CC, you can proactively detect when these unethical behaviors has happened while your end users are interacting with AI applications. And again, you will see that you are able to export these results to an e-discovery case if further investigation is required. Awesome. All right. So we covered.
That was a good demo.
Yeah, a lot today. So in summary, we talked about all the risk and compliance solutions from Purview. So there is Purview Audit, right? So that is where you can go ahead and actually I'll track back. So Audit, tracks all of the Purview interactions, and that is really the basis of all the Purview solutions, right? So not just the risk and compliance solutions, but also the data security solutions as well rely on the audit log, right? And so obviously a plug, make sure your Purview audit is turned on. It is turned on by default for most tenants. So, but if it's not on, make sure it's on. So once you have that turned on, then Copilot interactions along with all the other interactions that is happening in your tenant. So for example, your SharePoint delete, your edits, and all that is also logged. So for Copilot specifically, once that's turned on, then Microsoft 365 Copilot interactions are logged. And then you can go directly to Purview Audit to search those interactions as well. So that's Purview Audit. And then we talked about Purview eDiscovery Premium. You can investigate Copilot interactions using that, and then use Graph Explorer or PowerShell to delete that prompts and responses. Again, the caveat is that there is no hold or retention policy already on those prompts and responses. But you can remove them, I don't recommend it, but if you absolutely needed to, you can remove the hold and retention policy and then reapply afterwards.
Do verify with regulations first, see if there's not any other risks for that. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then again, if you have that regulatory requirement or you have a business requirement, right, you have a retention policy potentially for your organization on how long you need to keep and then delete your Copilot interactions, you can use Purview Data Lifecycle Management to retain and then delete that. And then last but not least, we talked about how you can proactively monitor and mitigate risk in your Copilot interactions using Purview Communication Compliance. Yeah.
Yeah,
anything
but
you want to add there, Max? Yeah.
No, well, before we head to the, sort of the wrapping up and talking about what's next, thank you for making it simple. I mean, it's for a complicated topic done in half an hour. It's a great demo. So want a quick shout out. Great way to present very simply how we can leverage, and any of you can leverage this in about the same amount of speed to implement policies. It is that simple.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up too.
Yeah, so there's a few, I guess, plugs and also resources we want to share with you. So number one, we love the customer connection program. So this is our program, and we have it for data security, data compliance, purview to secure and govern AI. This is our program that help us to connect with you directly and also give you access to private previews, upcoming features, roadmap calls, all of that good stuff. And in return, all we ask is obviously for you to test out our new features and provide feedback so that we can make it better before we go out into public preview.
It's an amazing platform to stay informed.
Yeah.
It's a very agile roadmap when we think, especially around AI, things are changing very quickly. So if you want to stay up to date, know what's coming up, it's the best place to be.
Yeah. And then there's some resources that I will flash by. We'll share that in the chat. But there is resources, obviously, on how to use both data security and compliance solutions to, again, secure and govern AI with Microsoft Purview. We talked about audit and e-discovery, so lots of Learn Docs, documentation here for you on how to use our audit and how, again, all of those quick references I showed on, what's an app host, what kind of workload can we filter on. For DLM, there are resources on specifically learning about the retention and deletion settings for Copilot and AI apps. And this one is an interesting one, and I'll do a little plug. But there is a lot of ask on it's not the actual prompts and responses of Copilot, but as you know, when you enable Copilot in Teams, Copilot can help create these great transcriptions, and we use that all the time, Max, right? Transcriptions, yep. Recordings. So there has been a lot of ask on how do we manage those from our customers. So we do have a white paper on that.
Really good call out.
Yeah. And then obviously communication compliance resources. We have lots of great resources to help with detecting, Gen AI interactions with communication compliance. So as well as a blog post here that is linked to all the new features that we've announced for CC, including being able to detect jailbreak and managed documents. Awesome. All right.
It's not always about the good use. There's also the bad use. So we got to be, stay up to date with all the features and documentation that we share. So we're, again, very proactive as well there. We want to make sure you have everything you need to ensure safe use of AI.
Yes. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And again, same time, same place next week. We will be talking about identifying and mitigating AI data security risk with data DSPM for AI, data posture management for AI. So we would love to see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And bye for now.
you.